Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Fat Muscle Project podcast. I'm John Gorman, one of three people in the room today. We've got one hell of a podcast for you on all things fat loss. It's probably going to be one of the best episodes we've ever done, Lisa. This is something to where we're going to talk about losing a ton of weight, but we're also going to talk about stalls and doing this in phases. We're even going to talk about getting lean enough to get on stage. So it's really one of those episodes I've been waiting a long time to do. Jason, who is our guest today, one of my good friends, but someone that's just been so crucial to us. But before we do that, let's talk about where we're at right now. It's December 2nd as we record this. We all just got done with Thanksgiving, and for Black Friday, we completely sold out of our ooey gooey butter cake protein powder. So I do want to apologize to people. The reason why we sold out of that is because we made up a whole bunch, but there was this. It was really hard to get the flavoring for this. It was really hard, and we were limited. So we made a big batch of it. But then all of our retail locations, our stores, our gyms, and trainers that buy it wholesale and they sell it to their people, they bought us out of it. So the week of Black Friday, we had to literally go all the way up to Synergy Labs, my manufacturing company, and we all got together, scrounged together all the raw materials that we could and the flavoring, and we made a batch. I was up there all hair netted up and filling it after hours. Like it was fun. Like it was really fun. And that's kind of the cool thing when you own your own manufacturing company. Like everybody just jumps in and you just make things happen, right? You problem solve. So it was a really good memory. And we had enough for Black Friday, just not enough for everybody. And it sold out in an hour and a half. So this is something, Jason and I were talking last week when he got it. He was like, hey, you better bring this back. And this is something to where it's that good. It'll probably become a staple, but we'll be bringing it back this spring. But other than that, the fat days of Christmas are going on. So our biggest deals of the year, protein is marked down $10 a tub. All each day is a different kind of sale. So watch real closely because everyone listening to this buys fat muscle stuff. So I'm not trying to sell you on a bunch of stuff. I just don't want you to miss out on these deals because they only come around one time of the year. We never discount anything except for this time of the year. So other than that, great. What about you, Lisa? How's the end of 2025 going for you?
It's going very well. I'm telling you, John, that I'm very happy because I'm actually having a bit of an influx in or a spike in coaching requests at the moment. So, why, of course, it makes me happy because generally new clients always make me happy, but it makes me happy that people have that mindset of like, I'm going to be ahead of the curve. I'm actually going to start my journey now. I'm not waiting until January 1st. I'm not going to binge over the month of December. I'm setting myself up for a successful 2026 already now, and that makes me super, super happy.
Yeah, you know what? Good for you. And, we've known how good of a coach you are for a long time now. And I have numerous people that have reached out to me and told me that they've hired you as a coach from the podcast. So
Oh,
that's
amazing.
that's excellent. And I love this because this podcast is kind of geared around people getting started early because January is going to hit. And this is why Jason's the perfect person for this podcast. January is going to hit, and I know there are people out there. They always talk about New Year's resolutioners, people like us, physique enhancement enthusiasts, where we live for the gym, like we love it. And I hate it when I see people say, "I just want to avoid the gym because all these New Year's resolutioners." This is exactly what this podcast is for. There are people out there that need to see what's possible. We need to be able to provide them with help and hope, which is what Jason's transformation really does. And we're going to talk a lot about that. But this is December and we want to get this kind of content out. So, with that being said, I want to introduce Jason. So, Jason to me is not only one of my best friends that I have, well, I would say a ride or die, get the shovel, we got to bury a body type person. He's always been that way for us. But going back to 2017, he hired me as a coach and he quickly became one of those people that led by example. So at the Anytime Fitness that he owns now, I used to own it. And when he started losing all this weight, he started to like people started to gravitate towards him and us. And he really just kind of built this following and he built the gym into really what it became. It wasn't me, it was him. And, he is someone that we sponsored when we were an apparel company before we even had supplements. And we've done a lot of work together, lost a lot of weight, stepped on stage. he's won a ton of money and things like the First Form Transformation Challenge back when we helped build that back in the day. Like he was really crucial to kind of lay the foundation on what a good transformation was. Um, he's an entrepreneur, a hell of an entrepreneur, a great salesman. And people hear salesman and they think, salesman. I'm talking about a good salesman, like people that know how to teach people sales. And he's a coach. He helps a lot of people. He helps a lot of people. And there's other things I know I'm missing out. Outstanding dad. His kids are awesome. Him and his wife are great people. So Jason, I know I'm probably leaving something out. What else do people need to know about you and who you are?
Well, the biggest thing probably is, I mean, you know the professional things. I own two gyms, work in sales also. Talk about sales is I don't really consider myself a salesperson. I really look at it as a consultant. I help people make money. In my realm of what I do is showing people, and it's the same process. It's find a pain, help them find out how to fix it, teach them how to make money. The biggest thing that I think for me that near and dear to my heart is probably I coach a lot. I do a lot with youth sports. I run our youth football program out in Rogersville, Missouri, where I'm from. I coach junior high baseball. Those are the things to me. Like people ask me how I have the time to do it all, but those are the things I really enjoy. It's helping young kids. And a lot of the things I've learned from this translate to that, from teaching them how to fuel their bodies properly, how to get them in the mindset that if you understand these things now, you probably won't let yourself get to a situation that I was, 8 years ago. So,
Yeah, and that's really where we want to start this off. People will see the before and afters if they haven't seen them. It's kind of funny because you used to be known as the guy on John Gorman's social media in his underwear, right? And when you
yep.
first started out, that was weird, right? Now it's normal because that's what we all do. We
Oh
post
man,
before and after. So
I actually remember the very first post you made. I did not know you were going to make that post. Like I literally opened up Facebook and there's a picture of me, my starting pictures that we did in the beginning, and then here's me in my boxer briefs, and I'm like, oh my lord, what? Of course, now it's the norm. Like it doesn't bother me, but that first it hits you like, oh my gosh. But it also showed me the results too, because like, and we'll get into this later in the podcast about, you know, why it's important to take those progress pictures and put them side by side because, it was actually a catalyst. Like it did that. I saw all these comments that people were making, all the likes, and it makes you feel good. It makes you like, oh man, like there's eyes on me. Like I gotta see this
yeah.
through.
Yeah, it's very impressive. You're even on the cover. Well, you and your wife Stacia as well are on the cover
Mm-hmm.
of Ask a Diet Coach, my
Yep.
book I released just prior to 2020.
Yep.
Where I had a bunch of my best before and afters ever. Like you both were right up there at the top. So yeah, I think those pictures are super important, which we're definitely going to get into. Let's talk about 454 pounds. That's the picture on the left for those that are looking at the before and after picture that's on the YouTube page and places like that. Let's talk about that. And what was that turning point that made you think, all right, I need to change something? Because here's the thing. We've got a 454-pound person listening to this podcast, or
Mm-hmm.
someone that knows that person that needs to know this can be done. Because I think that encompasses that's everything, right? When I
Mm-hmm.
show your picture at our events and stuff like that, I ask people, what's this picture mean to you? And I say, to me, what it means is it means hope. That's the number one thing that people need to garner from that. And there's someone that needs hope listening to that. So what was that turning point for you?
So yeah, so like 454. I'll be honest with you. We've talked this a long time. I wasn't unhappy. I had a good life, good job, I had two good kids, good wife. Really, that turning point was, for one, I didn't know I was 454 pounds. I knew I was big. Um, you always tell yourself, and every big person I know has done the same thing. I carry it well. You tell yourself, oh, I carry it. And I was still fairly active with my kids. But on Thanksgiving Day of 2016, I had a gout attack. And growing up, my dad's a big guy. My brother was a big guy. Um, my uncles are big guys. So like you grow up and that's the norm. So
Yeah.
you don't know any different. You get to a point where like that's who I am. And you in the back of your mind, you're always telling yourself, I'm not gonna be like my dad and have all these health issues and things of that nature. Um, but when you're young, you keep telling yourself how much time you got. Time creeps on you pretty quick. And I had that gout attack, and that was the first thing I remember my dad ever had was the gout attack. And and that shook me, but it really wasn't probably enough to shake me to my core to say now's the time. It was what got me to go to the doctor that really got me going because I went and saw the doctor in December because I had another gout attack, um, and I step on the scale, and my scale at home it doesn't go over 400 pounds. So you step on it to weigh yourself, and you just get a big ease for error.
Yeah.
So so I get on the medical grade one, it goes up to like it said 454, and I just sit there and stare at that number. Actually, I told the nurse, I think your scale's wrong. Like it's broke. And she kind of
Yeah.
chuckled and said, no. And so I go see the doctor. She's talking about gout. I'm talking about weight loss. We're not even on the same page. And, it struck me too is we had done blood work leading up to this. And, her response to my weight was, well, your blood work looks really good. Like you could be healthy at any weight. And in my mind, I'm like, yeah, until things start falling apart.
Yeah.
I mean, and so we talked about the weight loss after we got through the gout part, and I told her at the time I thought I understood how to work out. I grew up as an athlete. You know, um, I didn't understand the nutrition side, so she sent me to a nutritionist at Cox South, here in Springfield, and that meeting lasted approximately 10 minutes.
Yeah.
She had me track everything for 2 weeks leading up to that. And it wasn't like track calories; it was like just write down what you put in your body. And after she gone through it, she did point out that it wasn't so much the food. I probably underate when it actually came to food, but it was the 10 to 12, 20-ounce Mountain Dews a day that I drank and zero
Yeah.
water. So you're looking at 3,600 calories and nothing but sugar.
Yeah.
And so her fix to that was she handed me a diabetic that said, "Hey, follow this." But basically, limit your carbs to 150 a day. Don't count protein. Don't count fats. Enjoy a meal once a week. There you go.
Yeah.
And if you ever met me or spent time with me, I'm pretty much a black and white person. Like, I'm either going to do it or I'm not going to do
Yeah.
it. And so I'm like, well, I'm just going to quit drinking soda. So January 5th, I quit drinking soda. That was it. And just doing those little changes, working out 3 days a week, really not having a clue. Like, I mean, I had a plan. I did, upper body, lower body, upper body, or whatever it was. I lost 20, 25, 30 pounds in a month.
Yeah.
But then I just got to a point where it just stuck. And, and reaching out, I reached out to my niece who was one of your first bodybuilding clients, picking her brain and kind of came to a head where she was like, just call John Gorman. That's where I think a lot of people in my boat at 454, obviously we're not really into the fitness realm. Like we don't understand it. We don't understand what diet coaches are. We look at like I looked at you, John, as a bodybuilding guy, as a bodybuilding coach. That's what you did,
Yeah.
right? And Jesse's like, no, he's a diet coach. He helps people. Like, yeah, he puts people on stage, but that's just a small portion of what he does.
Yeah.
And had she not told me that, I probably never hired him.
Yeah.
I just eventually I would have probably given up, and I'd still be 450 pounds.
Yeah.
So
You know what? That's something off topic here real quick. I want our coaches listening to realize that you can get referrals from people. This was 7 years after I helped Jessie. Jessie won the Missouri State in her very first show. Really, she even named us Team Gorman. She was crucial. That's Jason's niece. I didn't know Jason at the time. 7 years later, I didn't know Jason. But because of the fact that her and I did good work together, when you lay that foundation, referrals can come years down the road. I still get referrals from people I worked with 10 years ago. So I want our coaches listening, like always remember that. Going back, Jason, let's talk about when you and I first started. So I want to talk about how to approach a diet phase when you get a client like this, or if you're listening and this is you. If you were that person drinking a ton of Mountain Dew a day, right? And you're just getting a ton of sugar and carbs, I could have just started you on a plan where, I set your protein pretty high. We'll just use the number 250 grams of protein a day is something definitely okay. 200 would have been fine too, but somewhere around 250 because you have a lot of muscle mass. I could have had you eat quite a few carbs and diet and lose a decent amount of weight. Like you would have lost a good amount of weight. The thing
Mhm.
is, when someone's been pounding sugar and carbs like that for a long time, their insulin sensitivity is not great. So with you, I decided we're going to go with your carbs not low, but lower than normal, right? And I'm going to raise your fats up because that's how you improve insulin sensitivity. And we really kind of did that right out of the gate. And I can't remember how much weight we lost, but in that first run, do you remember? I think was it maybe 100 pounds or so
It
before we
was
had.
like I think between April and December we lost 110.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Before we had to change really anything, I would drop your calories a little bit here and there. And we got you down to, I think, was it 2,500 before it was time to reverse somewhere around.
Yeah, yeah. I think we did a small like 8 week uh, keto run,
Yeah.
November and December, because we broke it on the day before Christmas Eve because
Yeah.
we went and then we jumped right into a reverse diet in January.
Yeah. So I want our people listening here's to set the stage. Basically, we did a carb cycle. He did lower carbs, not low. And Jason, I don't know if you remember the carbs in the beginning, but it may have been like between 150 or 200,
It was
right?
150. So it was 250 protein, 150 carb, 110 fats.
Yeah. So see, the fats are up there, right? But we would cycle those days, and then you throw in a refeed, right? Like a carb
Hmm.
up day and something like
Yeah,
that will count. So you keep the metabolic rate going. We've talked about refeeds and carb ups. So I started him that way with more fats, lost close to whatever that was, a little over 100 pounds. And then we got to where I had walked the calories down to where it was almost time to go keto, and we did. And then from there, this is the important part. When you have this much weight to lose and body fat to lose, you can't do it all in one shot. People try and stay on dieting cycles for 2 years straight, and it really crushes hormones. You see all kinds of stalls. So I told Jason, I was like, hey man, 2,500 calories, that's getting down there for you. You're a big guy. You got a lot of muscle mass. We've been dieting for 8 months or whatever it was. Let's reverse diet. And what I told Jason, and this is where Jason is key, people with Jason's mentality, they make this happen. So Jason was somebody I still think you've logged your food in MyFitnessPal for like, I don't know, 7 years in a row, like without even
it's
missing a day.
it's
It's
it's actually kind of ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Like that's the kind of person Jason is. When he says black and white, I'm all in, I'm going to do something. He is that way. So I told Jason, we're going to start adding food back in. He's like, "Wait, what the fuck?" I was like, "Yeah, we're going to add food in, but here's what's probably going to happen. You're going to keep dropping weight because you're so accurate." He literally was the type of person that executes like a pro before I even came up with that shirt, right? So what happens? We reverse diet and I get his calories up to, 3,000 or a little over. And he dropped another, I don't know what, Jason, 30, 35 pounds, adding
Yeah.
food, right?
Yep.
Yeah, because all the good things were happening. Metabolic rate sped up, cortisol dropped, but he tracked perfect. He executed like a pro, and that's the thing. So like you can do that in phases. So that was phase 2, but look what happened. He dropped another 30, 35 pounds. And then from there, what do? We dropped the calories back down after, 4 months or 3 months, and then you started dropping again. So that's how people do it in phases. There was a time in there, Jason, where I said, "Hey, man, I need." I'm laughing right now. You know exactly what I'm going to talk.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, "Hey, man, I need you to go eat a free meal." He was like, "Fuck you." He's like, "I'm
Yeah.
not doing that." He's like,
Not
"Dude,
happening.
I'll be 454 pounds in a day." He's like, "I'm not doing it." Talk about that because that's very real. Talk about why that first cheat meal was scary for you.
Yeah. So when you go from 454 down to, let's say I was probably maybe 230 at that time, right? And we'd had structured everything. So structured refeeds, structured off of the week. And John calls up and says, "Hey, why don't you go out and have a cheat meal this weekend?" And I'm like, dude, scared me to death because in my mind, I'm thinking, I can't because you get this wave of success. You're riding this wave where you're losing weight every week. You're seeing the scale move and you're afraid to see it go the other direction. Because for one thing, I didn't understand at that time the purpose behind the refeed, and not John's fault because he didn't try to explain it. I just wasn't listening, because I
Yeah.
didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear it. I'm good. I don't need it, because from a mentality, I was locked in. And I think, you're so afraid that that's going to open a can
Mm.
and a spiral. Like, can you hold it to one meal? That was really the fear was if I give myself an inch, am I going to take a foot?
Yeah.
And I think most bigger people think that way. They get to a point where they're really having success and things are going good and you're feeling good about your progress. That if you see something negative, the scale go up 2 pounds or whatever, it's going to derail everything. And, it took me a long time to get over that. As a matter of fact, I think that cheat meal, because I refused to do it, you made me go with you to go
Yeah.
ahead. I think you tricked me into coming over to watch wrestling and we put down like a bunch of pizza and some cookies. I don't remember what all it was.
Yeah.
It was a lot though.
Yeah.
But you know what? It didn't affect anything. Yeah, the next day I was up a couple of pounds. John's like, "Hey, drink a lot of water." Drink a bunch of water, and then I was actually one of my biggest drops in a week through that phase was that time.
Yeah. Yeah. It boosted your metabolic rate, dropped cortisol, and you hit more new lows by having those extra calories. I remember it was like a WrestleMania, and I had everybody over at the house, and I roped you in, and because I knew you didn't want to eat it, and we had pizza and cookies and all kinds of stuff, and you had to at that point, right? So like,
Well, I actually remember you like I put like one, two slices of pizza on a plate. You like put like three more on there and a
yeah,
handful of cookies. You're like, all right, let's go.
yeah,
And that was your own house. So like we were all in there. It was a good time. Like I mean, those are the things you remember from your transformation. I don't always remember everything, but you remember those pivotal moments because it broke a fear. I tell people a lot that I talk to that like, I was so rigid that I almost caused a bad relationship with food.
yeah.
And you forcing me to do those things and making me understand why. And then seeing what it actually did really kept me from having a bad relationship with food.
Mm.
Yeah, it's something to where so the importance of cheat meals, refeeds, things like that, at least once a week, and we've done the studies on this. Lisa, you and I had a good conversation on Facebook the other day, right? You brought up a very good point. I want to bring that up real quick. We need to do a whole episode on this. You brought up a very good point. Sometimes people need to not have refeeds and cheat meals because they're doing too much. Like their refeeds might be too high. They're having a low day and an off day and a high carb day and like twice a week and like all these things. And you brought up a very good point. Sometimes people just need to eat the same calories and see what your body's doing. And I 100% agree with that. 100% because people kind of get in their own way because they don't know what to do. In this case with Jason, we had this free meal and this cheat meal because, going back to the research that we were doing at USF at the time, we saw like if you're having straight calories, eventually you'll adapt. Your metabolic rate will adapt. How long that takes, I don't know. If I were going to guess, I would say maybe 8 weeks or so before you need to start having some free meals or refeeds is what I like because they boost metabolic rate, but you can't have them be too big. And this was something I had to explain to Jason. Hey, we need to be able to hit new lows. And if we don't do this, like your body's going to really start to stall. And at this point, we were getting to the point where getting fat off was not that first 100 to 150 pounds, where that stuff came off really well, mostly because he was accurate on everything. But when you start getting towards the end and that last 50 to 100 that he had to lose, your metabolic rate slows. Everything, hormones are starting to tank, which we're going to talk about. So having these refeeds and cheat meals was super important. Um, Lisa, I definitely want us to talk about how to structure if you're going to have a free meal or a refeed or something like that in a future episode. I think between us, we can really help people out on that. Jason, your first 100 pounds, if you can go back in time, what was the hardest part of that first 100 pounds? Because there are people listening that they're like, man, 100 pounds just looks massively daunting. Like for you, what was the hardest part of it?
So the hardest part of losing them was not seeing. Uh, when you are big, 454 pounds, 400 pounds, whatever. The hardest part was you see the scale move, you're hitting all your macros, you're doing your workouts, and you look in the mirror and you don't see it.
Yep.
Because in order to see a change when you go from that big, I mean, it takes a while. I'd say that was the most frustrating part. Like I remember being down, I mean, we were celebrating being down 80 pounds, looking in the mirror going, I don't see it. Now, everybody else sees, multiple comments about your clothes fitting different. You know, you can, but this is you looking in the mirror without a shirt on, going, I don't see it.
Yeah.
You think, oh my God, 80 pounds, like I should see a big difference. And you don't. That was the hardest part to wrap my head.
Yeah.
I don't know. Why don't I see it in the mirror?
Yeah. And you know what? I grabbed this shaker cup. If you're watching on YouTube, I want to give a perfect analogy here. So if you fill this shaker cup all the way up with water to the very top, say that's 454 pounds, right? If you drink it down and you take a couple drinks, it still looks like there's a lot of water in this thing, right? So, if you lose 20% of your body weight and you lose, 80, whatever the math comes to, and you look at this shaker, you still got a lot of water. It's not until you start getting down to that bottom part of the shaker when you've drank so much water that you start to really notice the changes. This shaker starts to look, every drink you take when it's down there towards the bottom, every drink looks drastic and you see the change. You're like, "Oh my God, I'm running out of water," right? It's that way with body fat. It's that first part when people start dropping. You know, people can relate if they need to lose 20. So here's the thing. If I were going to step on stage, I've got about 40 pounds to lose. That first 15 I lose, it doesn't look a lot different. Like it doesn't. And I just have to know that going in. So I think that's something that everyone can really relate to. Let's talk about the training. And I'm smiling here because I remember the training with you. Like I didn't start you off like a beginner. But I did start you off training pretty hard in the gym for the first, I mean, I would say year and a half. There towards the end, you were working out 7 days a week. And I never, ever recommend that, but we went with it with you. Do you remember why we just went ahead and let that keep going?
You know what? I think it was, I remember emailing you on one of my check-ins. And I'm like, hey, can I just work out? Like, because you had me on 5 days on, 2 days off.
Yeah.
A bro split is what we were doing. And I said, hey, what if I did 7 days? And you even said, like, I don't ever really do that. But I mean, if you want to do it for a while, we can try it. It just stuck. Like, we rewrote how we're going to structure it. And, I enjoy the physical part of it. So I think it was something for me from um, to really keep me motivated,
Yeah.
take my mind off everything else. So,
Yeah. It was something I knew that we were just in a pure fat loss phase. We weren't trying to build muscle. We weren't doing anything like that. And I thought, you know what? Like, let's just go ahead and do it. You're going to burn a lot of calories. It's less cardio I have to have you do. You can eat more food, but 99% of the time, I'm going to tell a client, absolutely not. Right. But you went with it and you kept dropping and you got to your goal, which is the job, right? Like our job is
mhm.
to get there. But,
My
you
thought
know,
with this is as well, sorry to chime in, but I think
yeah,
it probably really helped you establish the routine and stay consistent with it. Because I think so often if people quote unquote just want to work out 2 or 3 times per week, it's not part of their day-to-day thing and it's not part of their identity of like I'm the person that goes to the gym. It takes a lot longer to take on that new identity and it takes a lot longer to like fully be like every morning, no matter what, when I get up, I go to the gym, or every evening I go to the gym, you know what I mean? Because it's a lot less frequent. So I could imagine it even helped you in that sense.
I think so too. I think it's more of honestly, I think it's more of a psychological thing.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's something to where eventually you got to the point where you dropped 200 pounds and you made it to 250. And I'll never forget that. Like, I remember that day very well. And at that point, we had the talk and it was like, hey man, let's go ahead and take a break. Like, you hit that 200 pounds. Let's put on some muscle. Let's train to become a bodybuilder essentially because you wanted to step on stage, which you ended up doing in 2022 in a transformation contest with the WBFF. It was awesome. I mean, you were shredded. You had full abs. Like, you're probably like, holy hell, man. Like, it was down to, you even got down to 196 pounds. But I remember getting to that 250-pound mark. And I think that's a good weight for you. I think you walk around, hold
Mhm.
250 really well,
Yeah.
especially now. Back then it was still pretty good. But we changed your training. We didn't go 7 days a week. We really worked on eating more, and essentially you've been eating like a bodybuilder the whole time. But what I saw is the training had to change, right? So we started doing some advanced splits, but you're talking now a few years in, and hormones is something I wanted to talk about, right? Because
Mhm.
here's what I've noticed, and Jason, you can talk about your personal stuff or what you've even seen with clients, but we talk about hormones here a lot on the podcast. When I see someone that's been big and obese for a long period of time, almost I will say 10 out of 10 times their labs are always going to come back low testosterone. Estrogen's usually higher on the higher end, but testosterone's almost always low. And then if someone diets, their testosterone's always going to be low at the end. Like, there's just no way, because to get from where you are all the way down to where you need to be, it crushes hormones anyway, and they were already compromised being obese, right? So this is something that you definitely went through. I mean, I went through it. Like, I ended up on TRT in 2019 because, just from 10 years of dieting as a bodybuilder, hormones was something to where, we look back at your 250 pounds that you got down to. It was something to where you definitely started to feel that. Do you remember when that hit?
Yeah. So I remember when you started looking into your testosterone, 2019, right before I had skin removal surgery,
Yeah.
and in November. So this is probably September-ish, maybe a little
Yeah.
earlier. I went and had mine. I just wanted to see what it was. We started. You were doing the research on testosterone, rigging. Neither one of us were. We were getting older.
Yeah.
At that time, I think you were 40 and I was 39 or some of that ballpark.
Yeah.
And so I remember going and getting it. It was decent. It was like 650. We're like, okay, cool. Um, has skin renal surgery on November 7th of 2019. And you're out of the gym for, I think I was out for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, something like that. And when I came back, it was like it was all disciplined with no intention.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's what it was. I didn't have any drive for anything. Like I was showing up and I was going through the motions, and it was everything. It was workouts. It was my business. It was everything. You just didn't. I didn't. I'm like, and that's not me. And I opened up to you about it in like December. I was like, hey man, like something's just not right.
Yeah.
This is how I feel, and you're like, I know that feeling. And so he's like, let's go ahead and have let's have your labs drawn. We got them drawn, and they were like 201.
Yeah.
And that's when and PRT it's a big decision. Um, but it was one of those where I wanted to feel normal again. I wanted to feel that drive, that hunger, because we knew that after I had skin renal surgery, the goal was to get on stage. That's what I wanted to do. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to drive myself to be able to get those results feeling the way that I felt.
Yeah.
And it was affecting sleep. It was affecting, I mean, you can ask Stacia, like, I mean, it was affecting, not our relationship badly, but it wasn't the same. I'm a pretty over the top person by nature. I just wasn't that person. So,
Yeah.
you know, going on TRT was the right choice for me. Um, we took full advantage of it, decided to hold off on prep and, put some muscle mass on. And I look back and it's probably one of the biggest decisions I made through my transformation was to fix my hormones
Yeah. I
because it's
100.
allowed me to do everything else that I've done since then.
Yeah, 100% the right call to make. And you and I kind of were paralleled in there. So we both got to learn around the same time. I do want to talk about this is not on the show notes, but if you look back at the people that were going through transformations, right? And it doesn't matter, like we're friends with a bunch of people. You had a lot of people going through these transformation contests with you at the time.
Mhm.
And yours stands out way above and beyond most of the people's that I see because what I see was when you dieted down, you had a ton of muscle. Well, one, it's because we relied heavily on your training and lower amounts of cardio, and you ate high protein, right? A lot of people going through these transformation contests, they're doing 3 days a week of working out, cardio every single day. They're not doing this in phases. Like we treated yours like a bodybuilding prep, honestly, from the beginning,
Mhm.
by taking care of you and your muscle that way. That's why you looked the way you did at the end, where a lot of these other people, they were just smaller versions of themselves and their hormones tanked as well. Right. So I think one of the biggest things to point out, because we've got people that are listening to this that went through the transformation contests back in the day like that, and they've either regained it all again or they just can't look the way they want to look. And in my opinion, it's because the setup wasn't the best it could be to hold on to muscle, but they're missing that huge component. And that's everything we just said about testosterone. And I know because I've had these guys reach out to me. I'm like, listen, if you've lost 100, 200 pounds, your testosterone's not going to be right. You've got to fix that or you're just going to yo-yo from here. And it's unfortunate. We were talking the other day, we know a couple of people like they're starting over day one. And you even said, you're like, man, it breaks my heart to see that. But they can't get there without their testosterone in the right place, right?
I think it's a combination. I think, looking at some of the people that's been in the transformation challenge, they're just people you see on social media that's going through transformations. Um, First off, there's a right way to be in a caloric deficit, and then there's just a caloric deficit.
Yeah.
Now, you're going to lose weight, but you're not going to like the way it's not sustainable. And the post, not the knowledge you get from that, um, doesn't translate to when you're done.
Yeah.
I'm able to keep the muscle mass on, put more muscle mass on because of the habits and the things that I've trained myself to do, like the high protein.
Yeah.
But so if you don't have the right calorie mix and your hormones are right, you're not probably going to enjoy what you're doing, and you're not going to have the success that you should have.
Yeah. And that's what this podcast specifically, we're going to gear it very hard in 2026 towards people that need to lose weight, especially like this. We're going to help you do it in a fashion to where you have the most muscle that you can. You understand how to do it in phases. You understand how to watch your hormones because you are the perfect example of how to do it right. And I want to help, the people that were doing that back in the day. Like we didn't know that back in the day. I just happened to have fell into it with you and we figured it out, right? I wasn't a
Mhm.
genius back then. So that this podcast is going to be geared towards that. Um, let's talk about your biggest keys to success. I know whenever we speak somewhere, if you're not on the panel, I end up bringing you up on the panel almost every
Right.
time. I swear to God, I'm like, Jason Wells, get up here, answer this question. Your biggest keys to success, if someone out there is listening that was in your shoes, or it's a coach that's trying to help a client like you, what were those biggest keys?
The biggest key, I think, from a coaching standpoint, coaching big people, you have to understand one is they have no faith in themselves whatsoever.
Yeah.
So you as a coach, you got to install the faith. Like I honestly, I mean, I drove you nuts because the worst thing you ever did is give me your damn cell phone number back in the old days. Because I just started shooting text messages at 10 o'clock at night. You're like, dude, just email me because I'm not going to remember this.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have a million questions, we're going to have a million concerns. And as a coach, when you're coaching big people, there's probably more touches with them. You're probably going to communicate more with them because they need it,
Yeah.
because they don't believe in themselves,
Yeah.
and they're not going to until they can look in the mirror and see the difference. Once they see the difference, it's a different ball game. It opens up a whole new level. It's like leveling up in a video game. You just you just beat Donkey Kong. Like, on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So I think what helped me was having a coach. You did a really good job of that. You praised a lot. You know, Um, yeah, you showed me my underwear on the internet. Yeah, those were weird things, but they were things that made me feel good about my progress. So from a coaching standpoint, you got to understand coaching a severely obese person is you're going to have to pump them up or they're
Yeah.
not going to finish. I think the biggest for me for key success was, um, the head guardrails, man. That's what the macros were. I didn't look at it as a daunting task that I had to count all this stuff. It gave me my mentality was keep between the lines. As long as I stay in this lane, I'm going to be okay. And I learned to love the process. Um, and that was probably the biggest things for me to keep on doing what I was doing. It became a competition with myself, not competing against the other guys in the transformation challenge. I actually looked up to most of those guys. It's very motivating. Robinson, he was the guy you had before me. Like, he's the one that made me decide it was time to do it. Like, when I look at pictures, like,
Yeah.
but it was really just finding a coach that understood what I needed from a physiological standpoint, like what I needed mentally. And then, we didn't crash diet. I was never hungry. We put me on a good macro and we wrote it out until we had to change. But having those guardrails in place and not just shooting from the hip on what we're trying to do was really probably the biggest key to success for me.
Yeah. I'm gonna throw one more out there. You, like I said at the beginning, executing like a pro. You always had your food prepared with you. You had your lunchbox with you, you had your food prepared with you, you had your shakes with you, you had your stuff logged. You were never caught unaware of like or out, off guard. You were
Mhm.
never like, oh man, I'm stuck here. I mean, you owned all the Midases at the time, like three Midases, right? On top of the gyms, on top of coaching, on top of coaching your kids. Like you're one of the busiest people I've ever prepped. And you still made sure the day before you had your food ready. And that to me is always that comes back to, hashtag execute like a pro. Like there's a reason why I made that shirt. It's for people like you. And that's the base of everything. And a lot of people, if they just notch their preparedness up a level, they will get there. And you've always been really good about that. I've got this question. We were texting the other night. I've got this question. You're like, man, I don't know about this one. I want you to answer this. What would you say to people out there who were Jason Wells in 2017? Like, if somebody is listening now, what would you say to them?
Man, that is a hard question because there's a ton of things you want to say. Um, Probably the biggest thing is give yourself grace.
Mm.
You know, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to miscount something. You're going to miss a workout. You're going to have bad workouts. And you're going to go through a phase where you probably have more bad workouts than you have good workouts
Yeah.
in your mind. Honestly, that's probably not a bad workout. You're up at the gym or wherever you're doing your physical activity at, you're moving. And if you're moving, you're making progress when you're that big. Um, the biggest thing is give yourself some grace. Understand that you didn't get to 400 plus pounds in 2 months, and you're not going to lose it all in 2 months. And so, giving yourself some grace, learning patience, and just follow the process. Don't stress about it. Just enjoy the ride, and don't think about what you're going to look like 6 months from now. Think about what you're going to look like and feel like 5 years from now.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, there's this last part. Let's talk about what's next for you. We've got a fun 2026 planned, you and I.
Yeah. So, I think we're gonna step back on stage.
Yeah.
Uh, I honestly thought the last one was my last one, and somebody told me, I don't remember who this person was, that getting on stage it gets in your blood,
Yeah.
and it's for me it's a competitive thing. I'm a competitive person, and I'm old, so my days of playing football and baseball are over. And you can coach all you want, but when you're not the person actually out there participating, it doesn't really fill that void. So,
Yeah.
I got the hankering to get back on stage again. We put a lot of work in the last 4 years of putting on some good size, good
Yeah.
muscle mass. And part of it is I know what I look like at 196 then. I want to know what I look like now, you
Yeah.
know. Um, and also too, it's another thing to just show people what's possible. Like, I've seen so many people, and you've seen it too, where they lost weight and they regain. Um, and I want to show them that like you can keep it off. You can do this. And so it's just time. It's time to get back on stage and have some fun with it. And there's a lot of OG fat muscle team Gorman people doing it too. So it's pretty exciting to
Yeah.
be all there. We've all been talking back and forth and kind of pushing each other. So uh, in the meantime, we're going to spend the next 2, 3 months and try to push as hard as we could to put on as much muscle mass or as we can with staying as lean as I can, and then hit it hard in 2026.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. And it's going to lay the groundwork to something massive that we're doing in 2027, which we're not going to talk about now, but we talked about it before the podcast started. Lisa is now aware, Jason, you and I are aware that we're going to do the biggest thing we've ever done at Fat Muscle. And Jason's really going to be one of the faces of that. So I'm really, really excited. Um, Great podcast. Jason, we're going to have you back on because there's more to dissect here. At some point, we need to talk about once you lose it all, what it looks like to then just concentrate on building muscle when you're used to
Mm-hmm.
just being in a fat loss mode. And, where time and patience and all these things come in that test people. Like there's a lot of stuff to flesh out still. But this was definitely a good episode. We appreciate you coming on. If you guys want
Yeah,
to see more from Jason, if you want to email him, if you want to check out his IG, if you want to check out both his gyms in Springfield, I highly recommend them. We've got a link to that in the show notes. We appreciate you guys. Lisa, do you have any follow-up questions or anything for Jason or points you want to bring up?
No, Jason, thank you so much for coming on. I'm already excited to see you again in person in July
yeah.
next year at the Fat Muscle Meetup. So I'm really excited to see you then, and just in general for that event. It's going to be amazing. And of course, it makes me very happy that it's going to be in summer.
Yeah,
Me too.
that's July in Springfield, Missouri. It's our 10th anniversary Fat Muscle Project customer awards presentation, but it's also going to be open to the public too for the Fat Muscle Academy with great speakers as usual. It's a whole weekend event. That will be the weekend of July 25th. You can go ahead and mark that on your calendars if you're listening. So, all right, we're going to get off here. We've got some more episodes to record to finish up 2025 and head into 2026 for myself, Jason, and Lisa. We're out of here. See you guys.